Everything you watch, read, or listen to is manipulating your energy. You're being lied to about the world you live in. You're being lied to about your history. You're being lied to about who you really are. Question everything. Rye, welcome to the show, brother. Appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Brad. I always appreciate coming on your show, and your listener and viewer base are amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens, man. But I don't know how why, like, literally, I say it all the time. I have no idea why people are listening to me. But, I was just watching, like, this clip, dude, and I hate to take it to somewhere, like, a dark place, but it was like this guy was trying to make a case for, like, "Oh, there's these Epstein things are okay. Like, I don't know why we can't do these kinds of things." And it just made me realize that maybe God is putting us in these positions to talk about these things in an open forum to bring more light to these things because there are people like in my family, that literally have no clue about anything that's going on with the Epstein files. And I'm literally having to put it in their face over and over and say, look at this. This is going on. And they still are they're not in denial about it, but they're like, all right, they don't really want to hear it.
Yeah,
And I just think that being in a position like ours is pretty important at this moment in time. Like we're shedding some light into some very dark areas in good ways and bad ways. I mean, we're kind of uncovering some really cool stuff with history, like we're getting into today with these hidden lands and stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, I think
well,
that
I
having
always
shows.
believe that. Sorry, I always believe that we're playing catch up, though. Nonetheless, even like we're presenting these Epstein files, it's all catch up. It's all stuff that has happened already. It's and don't get me wrong. I think it's very important that people realize that the stuff is actually going on, and people, including my family as well, they're like, well, it's like 7 degrees of separation almost, or like 15 degrees of separation. It doesn't affect me because it's so far out. But how do they know it doesn't affect them? There could be people who've lost children and they don't know that they've actually been kidnapped or whatnot. And so we're still playing this game. It's kind of like shedding light on certain things so that people actually realize that this is important, that we know about this. And not only that, is like I said, we're playing catch up. So we're looking at Epstein files. Just because Epstein disappeared, and I'm not saying I don't know what happened to him, if he's dead or if he's still alive. Even though he has disappeared, doesn't mean that everything that happened is stopped completely. Everything is still going on. It's just changing a place, changing people, changing hands. That's all it is, and we have to always be aware. And I think, like you said, I think this is we're given a platform so that we can actually do that and present these things. And like today, like you said, we're going into Antarctica. Again, we're playing catch up because that's what, like, I don't know, 60, 80 years ago already. What we're going to be talking about for most part.
Yeah, and a lot of these elite people, these world leaders, these rich and powerful, they all have this insane interest in finding these extra lands. I was just reading about like Ghislaine Maxwell, how she was very interested in Atlantis, and she was trying to get in touch with the Cuban government because there's this 50,000-year-old civilization that's been found beneath the ocean off the coast of um, Cuba. And so, like, they always have this obsession with going to these strange lands and finding the Ark of the Covenant or some other kind of hidden technology or whatever it is to try to give them that extra edge on everybody else so they can
Yeah.
make more money. Like they're trying to land rockets on asteroids so they can mine the diamonds out of the asteroids and all this other stuff. It's like, it's very strange, but I believe that Hitler was doing this as well, right? In the 40s, he was going over the Antarctica. So was US. I mean, they were Operation High Jump. They were going over there as well to explore these lands. And now there's the Antarctic Treaty and all these other great things that we're not allowed to go over there and visit if we wanted to. And they say it's like, don't go there. They show you things on like the Truman Show, right? They show you these terrible winds, these powerful storms that looks like if you walk outside, they're going to blow you away in Antarctica, but it's probably not as bad as what it seems in Antarctica. I would imagine it's probably icy and cold,
Of
but I'm
course.
sure you've seen the video of the woman opening the door and she's like trying to shut the door, right? And the snow is blowing in. It's like a blizzard or something going
Yeah.
on. And I
And
think that's
hey,
just to scare us away, dude, you know?
don't get me wrong, I actually believe that that is going on, but there's so much more to it as well. And yeah, with this Antarctica Treaty, we have countries that are literally at each other's throats in the real world. And then when we go into Antarctica, everybody's all, oh, hey, we're all best friends. That's awfully, awfully strange that, they have all agree on this one thing. And that doesn't happen. That does not happen in this world, but it does. It happens here. And then you were saying that we are allowed to go to Antarctica, okay? But we are allowed to go to designated spots, We're like it's like this is it's like going to Mexico and you're only allowed in the tourist sections. That's all we're allowed to. You're not allowed to leave, and that's Mexico. That's what you see. And that's exactly what they're doing with Antarctica. You're going to go to a spot, going to go see some penguins, and then that's it. Then send you back home and nothing more.
Yeah, they had a bunch of, flat earthers go over there to see if the, sun would go down. I don't remember the results of that, what they found out or what they figured out, but they saw that the sun pretty much stayed up. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's something to do with that. I don't know. I know Flat Earth Dave would have a definite good take on that. And then going back to what you said, like the Nazis and Hitler, yeah, they were in the early 30s, were going around trying to discover these artifacts that you were talking about. It's said that actually the Spear of Destiny was taken by Hitler. And for those who don't know, the Spear of Destiny, that is the spear that pierced Jesus's side. Um, Allegedly, could have in theory, should have his blood still on it, and blood is one of the biggest forms of currency in the spiritual world. If you don't know, and Jesus's blood is reigns supreme. So that's why, and I'm kind of going a little off topic here, but that's why when you're dealing with like Satanists and whatnot, that they do so many sacrifices because the blood is currency. It's about making deals with demons and whatnot.
Yeah, man, it's really weird how, like like, people will say that God doesn't exist, but yet they will admit that there are people who are sacrificing and doing all these ritualistic things to the darkness, but they will stop short of like admitting that there is light and that light shines on that darkness. So it's very but I would imagine that there's a lot of interest around the world in people finding out like this is what I think 23andMe and all this stuff is, right? It's like I feel like the 23andMe is to find out the bloodline of Christ and all this. They say that Christ didn't have kids. I don't know, man. Maybe he did. Because for the longest time, I didn't even realize that Jesus had brothers and sisters, right? It's like so if he has Mary's blood in him, then
Yeah.
maybe his half brothers do too, right? Or his half sisters do too. And so maybe there is a bloodline there that they're trying to wipe away or protect. I don't know. I mean, there's a whole I think there isn't that what the Angels and Demons book is about, or is one of those Brown books?
Correct, correct,
Yeah.
yeah, and, like, the Holy Grail is actually, I think it's Mary of Magdala, her womb, actually, that's the or her child, their Jesus and her child is, like, the Holy Grail, actually, is what they're saying, and that's what the Knights Templar were created for, was to protect that, or was it the Rosicrucian? I don't recall, but, yeah, that's I agree with you completely, is that this is people are agreeing that there's these darker powers, these demons and whatnot. So if you think that there are demons, there is always the opposite. There always. There cannot be dark without light, good without evil.
What's funny, man, is I had an opportunity when I was in the military. I used to be stationed down in Florida, and at the base I was at was like the headquarters for NOAA. You know what NOAA is? NOAA is like the North American Oceanic and Administration or something. It's like the American,
Yes, yes, North
uh
Atlantic, yeah, I do recall NOAA, and I don't recall the acronym for it, though.
well, they had their headquarters base was where I was stationed at, and I was a photographer, and I was over on, like, where the flight line is, taking some photos and everything, and I was talking to this guy, and he was like, "Hey, man, we're going on this, trip, to Antarctica if you wanna go." I was like, but the type of trip isn't like you land and you go look around Antarctica. It was literally just fly there, fly over, do some refueling mission kind of things, and then head back. So it wasn't like a you get to get out
Okay,
and
it
walk
wasn't
around and hang out
anything
with penguins. You
it
know what I mean?
wasn't, but hey, flying over is pretty intense, and sorry, I just quickly looked up North Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm an
sorry,
idiot with
keep
these
going.
things, dude. I
No,
can
no,
get
hey
you I can
hey,
get you
man,
the
that's what
information, dude,
Google's for, that's what Google's for
yeah.
me, I'm like, "Do, do, 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 do." But yeah, so you had a chance to fly over? That would've been cool.
Yeah, but I didn't take every opportunity that was presented to me because a lot of times in the military, you just get burnt out. You know, you go on all these, like, little training missions and you all do all these exercises, and I was also doing a lot of stuff where I was deploying a lot to Iraq and Afghanistan and things like that, and I was just tired. I was done with flying. You get to a like, I have flown so much across the Atlantic Ocean that I just don't want to fly anymore. In fact, I kinda got this fear of flying, to be honest with you, that I won't fly anywhere now. I have to take a train or drive or something,
Wow.
and I guess I could still fly, but I would probably be scared because I used to do these things where whenever I was in, like, Afghanistan, for example, we would do these things called, combat takeoffs and combat landings, and these combat takeoffs are basically like you're trying to do these odd maneuvers to avoid heat-seeking missiles and all these, small arms fire and all this other stuff. So instead of taking, like, a regular path straight up, you basically are just doing all kinda crazy things in the sky, and it's terrifying. And so it's the same thing, like, when you're in the sky and you're about to land in a hostile fire zone,
Yep.
you basically are doing you're just falling out of the sky. And that is gut wrenching too, when you're just like literally it's not like, "Okay, we're gonna descend here, folks, and we're about 30,000 feet, and we're going down to 20,000 feet." It's literally like you're dropping straight out of the sky, so it was kinda there were some scary times and some helicopters and things like that, where this one time, not to kinda get off topic, but I was in Pakistan and the helicopter that we were flying in Pakistan, like, had to land in this field, and we just didn't get we didn't have a translator. We got dropped off in this field, and then the helicopter took off, and it crashed, like, over the mountains. It was like this old Russian helicopter that this Pakistan Army was using, and so that guy saved our lives by dropping us off in the middle of a field. And dude, I know these things sound fantastical, but these really happened. So, like, when you have those kind of things happen on a regular basis, like, man, I don't wanna fly anymore, dude. I feel like
Fair enough.
I've gotten rid of, or I've gotten lucky on a lot of different things, but yeah, I didn't mean to get us off topic, but yeah, man, I had the opportunity. I didn't take it. I kind of wish I would have because it would have been interesting to, be able to see what it was like at least flying over. But again, it's like one of those things, man. It's like you get you travel so much and you got to carry bags and so as a photographer, not only am I carrying like gear, like my camera gear, but I'm also carrying like all the other stuff that you have to carry as a person in the military as well. So, but yeah,
Got you. Yeah, which is a heavy load. It's a
yeah,
cumbersome load.
right,
So Antarctica, here we go. Let's South Pole to the flat earthers and not spiting them, but it's the ice wall. Um do we really know? I personally don't. It's I've never been there and I've never circumvented it. So I don't know. Could it be an ice wall? Yeah, it could be. But to the Nazis, I'm going straight to the Third Reich. This was something far more uh, interesting, and I was talking to you earlier prior to this that the move, and I'm going to a movie. If anybody has seen this movie called The 7 Years in Tibet, I watched it many years ago. Read the book as well. It circles around Brad Pitt's character Heinrich Herrer, and Heinrich Herrer went to, Tibet, so, of course, 7 years in Tibet. When he returned back to Germany, and it was months that they quickly, I think it was 6 months, they put together it might even be less than that. They put together an expedition. This was the New Schwabenland, and they called it New Schwabenland because there's an area in Germany that's called that, and then they named the boat that, so everything became New Schwabenland. And they headed out to Antarctica. Now, the theory is that Heinrich, got some sort of, either he got some information from the Tibetan monks, or he found another way into Agartha, which is inner Earth. And by doing that, perhaps he was given access to to Agartha in Antarctica. So, which is really, really crazy. And they went, so the Nazis went in 1938, between 1938 and 1939. They're specifically going to an area called Queen Maud Land. Okay. And it says, like, the official purposes of this was to survey territory for potential whaling operations, and to, like, economic interest, because what does that mean? That's such a vague term. Well, it could be for mining, it could be for anything. So they when they went, it said that they conducted aerial mapping and they dropped markers over large areas of the ice. Now, the historical records actually say it was just a short-term survey mission, and its timing before World War II and the secrecy surrounding it have, of course, contributed to speculation that this region was selected for strategic or possibly technological purposes. So they now what it said is that they actually made a permanent Antarctic installation in this area called Base 211 or 211. So what it's saying is that with this, it was kind of a front that they started to create underground facilities. And this is kind of what you were talking about earlier, where you were saying that these scientists have now been finding like this underground area that hasn't been touched or seen for millions of years or something like that. Can you?
Yeah, yeah. So I pulled up this article and it says beneath over 3,200 meters or 10,500 feet of Antarctic ice, scientists have just discovered a vast, untouched landscape, rivers, hills, valleys, and ancient landforms that haven't seen sunlight in over 30 million years. Using ice penetrating radar and satellite imagery, researchers from Durham University and the British Antarctic Survey mapped a hidden basin beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. What they found looks like a prehistoric world frozen in time. Think deep river valleys, mountain ridges, and wide floodplains, all still geographically intact, protected under the ice like a geological time capsule. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much a buried part of Earth, and so
Yeah.
you would kind of understand why they have some sort of Antarctic treaty to protect this, because if there's a 30 million-year-old civilization underneath, and I mean the answers to everything for 30 million years ago, I mean that would be crazy. You could kind of understand why there would be a treaty to not allow people there, but it becomes nefarious. It makes people think that there's something crazy going on there. Would they were working with aliens and all this other stuff.
But okay, so this is protected under, like, how many meters of ice did they say, or how many feet of ice?
Let me look it up again
Yeah.
because like the 10,500 feet or 3,200 meters.
Okay, so
10,500 feet. God, that's a few miles, isn't it? I'm not
yeah, so,
good at math.
like, what are you protecting? It's already protected. Like, you can't like, literally, you could probably drop a bomb on that thing, and you would never have an issue with that. Maybe you could crack it, but that would be about it. You're like, what are you protecting? I don't know. We have the same
Well,
thing in northern Canada, the same kind of landscape. I'm not saying the ice is that deep, but of course there's something more to that. And the
yeah, but I,
theory
I
is,
was watching X Files, and maybe I shouldn't be watching TV, but X Files was talking about something similar where they had this thing that was frozen in ice for 30 million years, and then it got to the surface and started basically just killing everybody that was in contact with it. So maybe there's a reason why there, because if there are biologics down there, that
Mhm.
they don't want people to be exposed to, then I can kind of understand that. So
True. One thing that concerns me actually about that. So if there's any type of type of or biologics that are down there, the only way that they're still alive, if it's this type of thing, is that if it was flash frozen. It wasn't a slow freezing died and then, died of exposure and then this. The only way that these types of creatures or things could be still alive is if they were flash frozen, which brings us a whole other avenue and like, light on this because I personally believe that Antarctica was livable. It was not this snowy, ice wasteland. There was something else going on in there, and then that happened, which is interesting. Now, one of the ways to survive this is, one of the ways to survive this would be geothermal vents in underneath the ice, and people wonder, like, well, what do you mean by geothermal vents? Well, you'll have like kind of like a volcano kind of thing underneath, a slight active volcano underneath the ice. And what it does is it will melt out the ice to a certain point. It'll hit an equilibrium where the ice is freezing and melting at the same time. And it will just stay at that point. And then the ice above will remain solid. Now you will need some chimneys. So, it will need a escape chimney here and there, but that is how, in my opinion, things, people, which could lead us to. So that way, I said that was base 211, and they said that there's an underground base called New Berlin that could be living in this type of world with if you are living underground under the ice in these geothermal vents, isn't that kind of Agartha? Isn't that inner Earth?
yeah, what is there was an app, like, there was that running app that I was telling you about
Yeah,
that
Fitbit.
exposed like, somebody was, using this running app to track their run, and
It was the I believe it was Fitbits, because this
oh,
was
was it?
also a, issue in the Pentagon as well, because it was showing, areas that people aren't supposed to, and it was tracking it and posting this. Yes.
Very interesting, man. Yeah, I just think that there's probably a lot more. I mean, I would imagine they have some sort of a breakaway civilization based there. Maybe they're working with some form of non-human intelligence or extraterrestrials or whatever you wanna call it. Maybe some
Mhm.
form of a civilization like the Agarthians or whatever, um, that they're preventing us from. I think that honestly that there was probably a major cataclysm that happened a long time ago, and I would bet that cataclysms happen regularly and they just don't want us to know about them. That's what I truly believe is going on. That's what I think the biggest secret is about everything, is that these things have happened, and, like, maybe these Agarthian people are, like, survivors from these eras, and they're, like, trying to teach them how to continue surviving and things like that. I think that that's probably one of the biggest secrets that's going on right now, because I think that all signs sort of point to that. They don't want people to know about astrology, they don't want people to know about astronomy, and they don't want people to know about magnetics and pole reversals and things like that. We'd always hear about them, but we
Yep.
never really put it into, like, "It's really gonna happen, guys." Like, something might actually take us all out at one time. I mentioned on solar cycles, I even mentioned on your show how we didn't even know about the solar cycles and how dangerous they are every 11 years. So imagine on a grander scale, if you kinda zoom out every 23,000 years, if there's something that happens where there's this pole reversal, and then all of a sudden the water shift and the ice shifts from one place to another, that kind of stuff, and it sort of buries these civilizations. There's this thing called the South Atlantic Anomaly, and I just pulled it up a while ago, where it's this basically this magnetic part of Earth where you can't fly through in space, and you can't really fly through on Earth as well, because it's like where the Van Allen radiation belt is pretty chaotic and it's pretty close to Earth. And a lot of people think that that area used to be like the South Pole, for example.
Okay.
And so that's why it's still highly anomalously magnetic. And a lot of these ancient sites point to that area as well. And so I think that a lot that has happened over history, like with the flooding and stuff like that. I think the waters rush in over a place like Antarctica and then freezes all of a sudden because now the side that has no sun whatsoever, it's just a big block of ice. Like it's gonna be like that for however long, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. When you're saying that, I don't know if they're non-human intelligence, but well, it depends on what you describe as human. Um, they could be breakaway civilization or from an advanced civilization such as Lemuria or Atlantis. And this was a satellite colony or a satellite of Atlantis that survived. And that is why they have this technology. I believe 100% that they have this technology. And if we want to get into Operation High Jump, when Admiral Byrd went down to Antarctica, that was what year was, I think that was in 46 and 47. That was 46 and 47. And that was his third expedition actually to Antarctica. He had gone in 1928 to 1930. And then again, his second expedition, he went in 1933 and 35, but Operation High Jump was in 46 and 47. Now, he also established the first permanent American research base on that continent. And now, this is one of the crazy things is that they went with an expedition. This expedition was the largest ever mounted. It was 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and they had just under 5,000 people going to Antarctica. Like that's massive. Like, why are you sending all this down there? Which is it's just crazy. Now, when he was down there, it said that he flew over a he flew over a hole, okay? So, it said that he saw this he flew over this renaissance it was a renaissance flight, a reconnaissance flight in '47, and he says they encountered some unusual atmospheric conditions, which might play like, I know you're saying you're posting this, part here with the magnetic anomaly, but maybe there's something else as well that was causing these atmospheric, conditions to be the way they were. And so, he said that he had flown over this and, well, now so his instruments started malfunctioning. Kinda sounds a little bit like, what is that? The Bermuda Triangle. And now that's when he flew over. They said there was a hole opening in the polar ice, and he says that they went into it, and it was more of a temperate interior. Now he talks about lush landscapes, different type of animal life, and then he also said there was an advanced subterranean civilization there. That when they were flying their plane, all of a sudden these two saucer-like craft flew up beside him, and then they took control of his plane and landed it into an area, and then they said that they're gonna take him to the master, okay? When he said also that when they were speaking to him, they were speaking in a, kind of like a German accent. It was almost as if they had a German accent when they were speaking to him, so quite interesting, what happened at that point. And the reason why we have this specific information, it's Byrd was sworn to secrecy, like, he had to s he was, what do they call that when they, um, like the
Non-disclosure agreement?
Yes, yeah, like an NDA. He was kind of told, like, "No, you can't talk about this," but he had written a diary, and before he actually, came back onto base, he was interviewed in an Argentinian, I think it was a TV show, an Argentinian, TV show, and this is back in, like, the fifth I think it was, like I said, the '48 or something like that, and was it a TV show or a radio show? One of the 2, and he just started disclosing this stuff, and he said, they had seen craft fly pole to pole within a short amount of time. I think it was, like, minutes. So that was some of the things, and also what was released was his, not released, but there's also his diary, and There's speculation about that diary, if it's legit or not, and his son claims that it is, which is interesting.
Well, I have this article pulled up. Sorry to keep
Yeah,
pulling
yeah.
things up
No,
while
no,
you're
no.
talking,
Please
but
do it. Please do
I'm
it.
trying to show people who are visually watching this some additional things they could look up possibly. But right now, I have a screen pulled up. Is called the South. It's from space.com. It's an article, and it says the South Atlantic Anomaly. Have astronomers finally explained space's Bermuda Triangle? And basically, there's an area of the North Atlantic Ocean known as the Bermuda Triangle where ships, airplanes, and people have been known to disappear without explanation. No one knows for certain why more than 50 ships and 20 planes have vanished since the mid 19th century. But that's not to say people haven't had some fun seeking an explanation. Maybe it's to do with extraterrestrials, force pulling objects, yada, yada, yada. The Bermuda Triangle of Space, or the South Atlantic Anomaly, as it is formerly known, lies above the South Atlantic, stretching from Chile to Zimbabwe. It sits at the point where the inner Van Allen radiation belt comes closest to Earth's surface. Here, Earth's magnetic field is particularly weak. So, yeah, basically you were mentioning the reason I pulled that up is because you're mentioning the, Bermuda Triangle, and that's actually what they call it. They call the Atlantic Anomaly the Bermuda Triangle of space, which
That's fascinating.
I know people listening is like, "Man, space is fake," and I actually think so as well, but I think that they're still telling us a lot when they reveal some of this stuff. Space, we might
I
call it something different, so
I agree with you. I agree, and it's interesting that they say this Van Allen radiation belt is coming in closer at that point. That's
which is
fascinating.
where okay, so, like, the Aurora Australis is
Mhm.
the South Pole. It's everybody knows Aurora Borealis, but nobody ever talks
Yeah.
about the Aurora Australis, which is the South Pole, version of the auroras. And like I said, if the pole shifted like 28 degrees, that would put that South Atlantic anomaly, about 28 degrees away from off its tilt, basically. And so
Mm.
normally that magnetic, um, the South Pole would be like where the Aurora Australis would be is right below Chile, right on, in the Atlantic Ocean between Chile and Zimbabwe, basically. So I think it's pretty interesting that and by the way, it's not very far from the actual Bermuda Triangle. Relatively speaking, I mean, if you're looking at the map,
Yeah.
the Pacific Ocean is vast, it's huge, right? And then you think the Atlantic Ocean, that's big, but it's not quite as big as the, Pacific Ocean, and so we're really not talking about that far apart from and that actually, I've been talking a lot about on my show, these aeromagnetic maps that the USGS, which is the United States Geological Survey, produces, and they did a mapping of this whole area in the 1940s. So this is when they started mapping these, crazy areas like the Bermuda Triangle and the South Atlantic Anomaly was because they were experiencing a high amount of anomalous activity and anomalous plasma, lower auroras and things like that, and that basically had everybody like, "What in the world is going on?" I can't remember the guy, there's a book that was written about this, and it has since been classified, and I wrote the guy's name down, but he's like a
I've heard this too. I can't remember either.
no,
But
I'm not
I
talking
know that
about the
doesn't
Chan
help.
Thomas. I'm not talking about Chan Thomas. I'm talking about this guy he wrote a bunch of pulp fiction novels called Weird Tales, and he's been writing about this stuff since, like, the 1900s,
Okay.
and he basically had one of his articles that he wrote for Weird Tales classified because of that, and he's talking about vortices and all this other stuff. It's really cool, man. There's a lot more going on. These people have been talking about this since the '50s, '40s,
Yeah.
'30s. I mean, we're just kinda coming into this knowledge now because it's been buried from us. We haven't we don't learn about this in school. You'll never hear about Admiral Byrd, or you're never gonna hear about,
No.
like, South Atlantic anomalies and things like that in school. Maybe some people did, but in my school, in the rural South, we weren't learning anything like that. We didn't know what plasma was, none of that stuff. So
No, I agree. We never knew about, the Nazis' expeditions to Antarctica.
right.
We knew about I knew about World War II, and it was, the Axis versus Allies more or less, or I guess that's World War One. But yeah, it was it was us versus them is kind of what it was. And it's interesting that you often wonder, is history really real. And I mean that with, the most open mind here is saying that is that, with history is written by the victors, but not only the victors, it's written by those who want to control the narrative. So whoever controls the information, they control history. So, yeah, we're the victors, but even then I question. I question if we're actually the victors.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
this being said, I'll be straight here with this one. Germany lost the war, but I believe the Nazis won. That is what I wholeheartedly believe, especially with Operation Paperclip, which was the redistribution of the Nazi um, officers and elite into throughout most Operation Paperclip was for mostly for the US. Canada got some as well, but what we were given with at the end of World War II was the Nuremberg trials. There was only a handful of people that were executed, and that's satiated you know, the the public's need for justice, and that's what we got. That was our justice, and then everybody was happy. But there was hundreds, if not even not thousands, of other Nazi officers and officials that were just relocated throughout the world.
yeah, and NASA, by the way, for maybe for people who are listening outside of the United States, it's not an official government organization like the FBI or the CIA. It basically directly has access to the president, and they have no oversight in terms of, like, who really oversees them. There's supposed to be some government oversight, but there's really no oversight, so they have, like, an unlimited budget, and I think a lot of that probably stems from Operation Paperclip, where they were working for NASA to create rockets and jets and all this other stuff. I mean, these the Nazis were working on a lot of crazy things like that time traveling bell and all those other things that
Yeah, the German, the is it the Nazi bell, the German bell? Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
well, one of the things that woke me up to reality and what's, being lied about history and stuff was I remember looking at Google Earth whenever it first came out, and I don't remember exactly when. It might have been 2009 or something. And I remember going on now Google Earth is like that 3D map of the world. I'm not talking about like, Google Maps or anything like that. I'm talking about Google Earth. And you used to be able to go around the globe, you could spin it around and kind of look at these different sites around the world.
Yeah,
And now a lot of it's blurred out. A lot of the coastlines of the world are blurred out. Almost all of Antarctica is blurred out. There's like 16 different no-go zones, which you mentioned earlier. There used to be this hole that people thought were like, this is kinda like that hole I think that you were saying that Richard Byrd was talking about, right?
yeah,
Where maybe a civilization is, maybe access to this Agartha or whatever, but there was a hole that was like you could see it on Google Earth, and then now it's gone, and you could used to be able to see all these pyramids and stuff, and now all of those are blurred out as well. So it's, really interesting, man, but that was one of the first things that woke me up was that and I say that a lot. There's a lot of things that woke me up, but that was one of those things that I first started looking into where I was like, "Why are they blurring out the coastlines of the world?" How come we don't know about, like there's for example, there's this whole city off the coast of Egypt that this one guy I watched a documentary on it. For like 40 years, he's been trying to get the government's permission to go and excavate, and they just refuse. They don't wanna go down there and find out. And he's going down there, and he's paying for it himself, and he's scuba diving, and he's finding, like, these amazing treasures and statues and everything, and canoes and everything that is sunk, and it looked like something that happened all of a sudden. Like, there's a guy who
yeah,
goes on Rogan sometime. I think it's called the Alaskan Boneyard, where he finds
correct.
all these frozen bones in Alaska on his property, this buried in permafrost, and a lot of these things are, like, frozen as in, like, they have something in their mouth, they have something in their stomach still
Yeah,
as if they were eating, and then something just all of a sudden just stopped them in their tracks, so
yeah. It's funny you say that because recently my daughter and I were looking at this fossil, and I was showing her this fossil, and I'm like, "Tell me what you see here." And it was a squid type thing eating a fish in the process of eating a fish, and it was fossilized. And I was like, "Tell me what you see." "Oh, I see this." I'm like, "No, no, no. I want you to think more. Like, what's weird about this?" And she couldn't really get it at first, but then she came to it is like, why is this like still in the process of eating and that's it? It died. It's like it still has the fish in its mouth. It's still digesting this. And there is a lot of like creatures that are just in the midst of eating and they're instantly killed, instantly frozen. Something like you said, and there's cataclysms. I completely agree. I think there is a lot of cataclysms that go on throughout the world that we don't know about. And I mean, that we're not told about, and like the Sumerians, they talk about a flood as well. Just about every ancient culture talks about these great floods, and they happen. I believe it's the Aztecs or the Mayans talk about that we're in the fifth world. The first one was eaten by a jaguar, then the second one was by like fires engulfed in fires, and the last one, of course, was we were flooded, and we were told that we're not going to be flooded again. But what's next then? What is coming down?
Well, I mean, that's just not true because I have literally been to the pyramids in Egypt.
Hmm.
And when you're up close looking at these stones, it's pretty obvious that they were buried underwater for a long time. And so in modern history, in our modern what we know about history, you know, you can see pictures of Egyptians uncovering the Sphinx and stuff. The Sphinx's head was barely sticking out, and the top part of the pyramid was barely sticking out, and it looks like ocean sand. That's what it looks like on layered on top of this civilization. A lot of people don't realize that there are about at least 180 pyramids in Egypt that we know of. That doesn't even include the Sahara, which has only like been explored, like 1% of it has been explored or something like that. Imagine what they're going to discover with LIDAR and all this other stuff. So, what I'm saying is, I think that there was an ocean that sat on top of this civilization for millions of years before a shift, and that water flooded other parts of there. So I think it's kind of rocking back and forth, right? It's going maybe that whole region of the world will be underwater again at some point, and then maybe millions of years from now it won't be again, and back and forth and back and forth. That's what I think is going on, and you can kind of see that with all these rich people buying up lands at the top of mountains and bunkers and all this other stuff, man. They seem to be trying to run away from something. It seems like they know something, you know.
I Yeah, I don't deny that. I think it's awfully strange, and that started happening maybe like 5 years ago when you started hearing a lot of this. Now, maybe something has changed because I don't hear much of it anymore. Like there was a ton of CEOs resigning and
They still
everything
are.
happening. They still are, but I think now it's from a different reason why they're resigning because their names are coming out on the list. I think that plays a big part, but there's not as many. You don't hear the stories of the bunkers anymore. Maybe something was supposed to happen. Maybe Operation Looking Glass. They saw something possibly could happen and it didn't. So now what?
Well, what year do you happen to know off the top of your head what year we allegedly discovered Antarctica?
No, I don't. No, 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 no.
I wanna say it was, like, not long ago, like, the 1800s. I mean, I have to look it up, but there's all these old maps, like the Orontius Fineaus map and, of course, the Piri Reis map where it just
Correct.
it shows these it shows it as this, like, warm civilization. Now, allegedly, these maps are from, like, the 1500s. So does that mean that not long ago in our short past, this entire part of the world was not under ice? So it's just really weird. I think that these cataclysms again.
Okay, so I actually have information for you. So
Okay, good.
not to deal with those maps, but Antarctica was only first discovered in 1820 by Russian navigator Bellinghausen and Lazarez. The
Good old
following year, merchant
Bellingham.
marine hunting whales and seals stepped ashore the continent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it doesn't make sense if all these old maps depict, like, actual lands. And by the way, when you look at, like, the Urbano Monte map,
Mhm.
it shows what looks like creatures of mermaids and these centaurs or minotaurs or whatever you wanna call them, these half human, half horse people, and all these other creatures. You see, like, dragons, and you see, like have you ever looked at the Urbano Monte map?
No, I haven't, or I might have. I might have. I looked at the what's that called? The Piri
There
Reis
it
map.
is, yeah.
Yeah, Piri Reis map.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll pull it up. I mean, I'll just
Please, 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 please.
briefly pull it up, but there's this, really high resolution map that you can.
I have seen this, but please, is that the is that did you say that was the Phineas? Not the Phineas map, no.
So this one I'm talking about is the Urbano Monte map, but you can also look at the Orontius Fineaus map online as well. But if
Mhm.
you want a like a high definition, high resolution image, there's a website called davidrumsey.com, not Ramsey, David Rumsey, RUMSEY.com, and you just go there and search Urbano Monte map, and you can literally zoom in. It's basically is from 1587, and it has. I wish I could zoom in. I'm trying to I'm trying to zoom in before I pull it up, but yeah, you can zoom in. Okay, hold on. Let me. It
Yeah.
really shows. It's really strange because it's like a Spanish map, but it really shows all over the world pyramids and all these other different things, and it shows ships going as far as Antarctica. It's it's
S
really big,
so
man,
I
and I'm
used to I used to have access to a fantastic map, um,
here, let me
and
pull it up.
I've lost it. I actually just clicked on it, and it says bandwidth quota exceeded. The site has exceeded its monthly quota for
I'm
bandwidth.
probably about to do the same thing, dude.
Yeah.
David Rumsey, yeah, it's really hard to, like, finagle this map, like, especially on the live. So, you really have to, like, zoom in. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll just kinda give you a brief, like, let me see if I can find the area. Probably not good for those who are listening to us zoom around on a map, but
Yeah, so we're looking at a map, and it's kind of like think of a big circle, and in the middle, we have, what we know as the world, and then he has these outlying lands that are further out from the circle that we know it.
yeah, it's a circle map, and essentially it's a planisphere map, and what looks to be Antarctica is like it looks warm, and there's these different, like, see that, like, dragon looking serpent thing there,
Mhm.
and then there's, like, people in the ocean right there, and there's antelope. This would be Antarctica right here, essentially, because the map's kind of flipped around. See where America is?
Okay, so I don't see your marker on here.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. You're looking. So, basically, in the center of the map,
Yeah. That
um,
is North America. I mean,
that's
sorry,
North America,
that
yeah.
is and that's the Arctic.
Yeah, and then to the left of it is the Antarctic, and Imma try to zoom in for you to be able to show you. Again, I told you this was really hard to do.
Mhm. Okay,
It's
here.
hard to zoom in, man. I'll just give up on it, but essentially, if you zoom in on this map, you're gonna see, like, all these creatures to
Yeah.
the left of what looks like South America. You could see if you go to the left of it and even below it, you see, like, the pink border and you see the green border, and again, this is all it even looks like South America is connected to Antarctica in some way, so
And that kind of, rings with, like, Patagonia, where you have the
yeah.
Patagonian, giants, and they said that Magellan was, he was the first one to navigate the world, and he discovered these giants, and this kind of rings with, Paul Stobbs, is that when they did this, they encountered a giant that was on it was on the beach, and it was all, like, painted up. It had, like, I think, like, red hair, and it had, like, white, like, really white, they said white paint and, like, red rosy cheeks and stuff like that, which really reminds me of the Nephilim look like clowns. When he was describing this, I was like, "Okay, this is interesting, really interesting," and it was, Magellan and his, I think it was his navigator or someone along that line, that, and they documented this, that they actually saw this. This was in Patagonia, and, they seen these giants there.
Well, it just the question that brings to mind whenever I see a map from the 1500s is is our timeline right? Like, are we in the correct year that they say we're in? When you look at all these old buildings, they have, like, this weird number before the 9, like, everybody thinks it's 1, but is it really like, if it says, like built in 1905, for example, it has this weird number, and then it says 905. And it makes me wonder if that number is like some, a
Are you thinking like
1,000 year
we're
count.
there's a conspiracy theory that we're 300 years off.
Yes,
Um,
that's kinda what I'm
but
getting at.
so I was talking with just this morning, actually, I was talking with Alexander Cheskovich, and he is a historian. And I asked him this question, not on during my interview, but during another just passing, asking him about this. And he's like, from all the research I've been doing, he says he doesn't believe so. He believes that it is that we are exactly where we're supposed to be.
But it doesn't make sense when you look at maps, like, they didn't just make up things when they were drawing a map, because if you look at some of these maps, like the Urbano Monte map, if you zoom in on it, which is again, there's a high resolution version that you can zoom in on, you'll see that there are markers that line up with what we know today, for example, like in America. Right? You could see,
Yeah,
like, places where like in, um, Louisiana, where there's a bunch of pyramids, like Poverty Point, Louisiana, for example, you see pyramids on that Urbano Monte map in that location, so it looks like but they had different names for these regions. They weren't called the same thing, like, I believe Chicago was a different name.
yeah.
All these
And
different regions of Earth were very different names.
and like this was their job though. A lot of them were cartographers to map coastlines and to document this. It's not to say that they weren't discovering, like, I'm sure they saw things that they've never seen ever before in their life, but this was their job, was to do this. So, some of these drawings that we see, they seem so outlandish, but what's to say that, well, that's maybe what they really did see. This was their job, it doesn't mean that because this was 300 years ago or however long, that they didn't know how to draw, they didn't know how to document things. Like, we do that all the time where we take people's written accounts and we believe it all until a certain point, and then we're like, "Oh, no, that was just a drawing. That was just allegory. That wasn't real." And, so, like, you're talking about the map there, what's to say that those aren't real creatures that they actually saw?
Well, that's what I'm saying, and with when you read the Book of Enoch, you see that a lot of these a lot of the women that mated with the daughters of men, you don't hear a lot about the punishment of them, and it's suspected that they were punished to be like mermaids and sirens and things like that, so they had this, um, like, I guess, punished to be animals or if that makes any sense, like, punished to
Yeah,
maybe farther lands away. Yeah,
to
maybe
be like
they're
hybrids or, yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, well, again, they were creating hybrids, I mean, if they
Yeah,
were mating
of
with
course.
fallen entities, with spirits, they were creating these, animals, these giants, these lizards, or these whatever you wanna call them, and these lizards were continuously doing that, and they were probably splicing DNA and they were probably mating with all kinds of different animals to create all these other different creatures, and again, I think that's why God flooded the earth was because it was just so much of that stuff going on, but, can you see us?
No.
Alright. I can see you, so, like, hopefully
Okay,
that's
okay,
not
no,
yeah.
that's fine, we can keep going.
Alright.
I had it set as the full screen, and then I brought it back down to
Yeah.
normal, and now I don't. But hey, I can rock it. I'm a professional.
Well, I
I'm an amateur.
apologize for those who are watching. I was trying to get that map up earlier. It's really hard to do these things live, or like when you're recording and
Yeah,
try to it won't let you, like, basically pull up the map beforehand and have it zoomed in. I tried that before we started the show. I tried to pull up a lot of these different things, and it wouldn't let me essentially have it off to the side so I could just pull it up quickly. Normally, that's how it's supposed to work, but it is what it is, man. That's
yeah,
technology. We just gotta roll with it. But
exactly,
the fact
exactly.
is, though, that these maps really exist, man, and I just think that it would be
And there's a lot. There is a lot of these maps that
yeah,
exist, and they show things like this, Like, um, okay, so and some of these maps depicts things that allegedly we never even knew there. So, um like, there is a Chinese world map that was made in 1421 that depicts the Americas over 70 years before the first Columbus voyage. So we were voyagers far beyond far earlier than what we've been told. We documented this. This was all seen and done before, and it's just crazy that it's all being hidden from us. Like the truth. It's kind of like we don't know. And this is something I was just having a discussion with today. Is that I was talking with Alexander, and he is in university, and he is studying with the academics, and he's like, "It's a breath of fresh air." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, the academics literally are saying we don't really know. They go through things, and they go through things thoroughly, skeptically, but they're kind of saying we don't know." He says the issue is that you have the shouters, the people who are shouting, who maybe know a little bit, but they are shouting so loud that we all believe it. And it's like the bankers as well. So it's people who shout and the bankers that are convincing us that this is the real truth. Whereas the actual academics are kind of quiet in the background because they're saying, well, we don't really know.
Well,
So
isn't it the
yeah.
scientific method to continuously question everything and keep trying to move the ball forward and making sure you test everything? And it seems like I was just having a text message conversation before we started this show with my cousin Bryce. Shout out to Bryce. I know he's listening. He was talking about Wes Huff. And I said, well, the problem with these academic types is they believe everything that academics tells them. They just naturally will. It's like that in the medical career field too. It's like, one person has to say it first, then the journals have to agree, and then everybody else believes it. Rather than just going off of your gut and saying, "I'm gonna try this and see if it works." They have to like, "No, we have to do this first, and we have to do all that," and they don't go off of their, like, gut
No,
instincts a lot of times.
it's true, it's true. They don't go off their guts because, and that's one thing that Alexander was saying, because he's has all these ideas, and a lot of them are like, well, those are good ideas, those are good hypotheses. Like, it's great to do that, to see that, to have that, but you need to prove it. And if you can't prove it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it doesn't mean that it does. It's either or, and they're kind of like, if it's in the gray or in the middle, then they don't really. You have to keep working on trying to prove it.
It's easier to fool someone than to convince someone that they've been fooled, you
Oh
know?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's just the whole purpose of this show is literally to question things. I think it's healthy to question everything. I don't think it's a good thing to just like when someone tells you something, you just believe it. In fact, this conversation right now, I would hope that people don't trust us to the full extent to believe us what we're saying. Even though we're truthfully saying how we feel about things, go look for things yourself. Look it up yourself. I mean, you can look at Google Earth and you can see that the most of Antarctica is blurred out. You can see that most of the coastlines are blurred out, right? You can see that we're not allowed to go to Antarctica. So those are things that you can easily look up and test for yourself and see. But again, I think that we have to question things. You can't just like automatically assume that somebody's telling you the truth all the time because that is a very dangerous place to be. I mean, you get led down the wrong paths. And in fact, like I said it earlier when we started the show, is like now you're hearing conversations like, "Oh, what Epstein is doing is normal and we should normalize it." What? Like what? And it's gonna be they're sounding they're doing their dog whistles for their followers, right? They're just like everybody's gonna start repeating that. And you have to speak truth to power like that and shine that light in the darkness, man. Because if you don't, then unfortunately, people will just continue to use you and manipulate you and say what they want you to believe and all this other stuff, and you'll just blindly listen. And I have it to an unhealthy degree, actually. Like I question literally everything all the time, and it's probably not completely healthy to do that. But that's my natural instinct is to kind of immediately push back against what somebody's telling me. And I have to be more trusting of some people, but not the people who've been writing the history books, not the people who've been telling us the news. They've lied to us enough to where their reputation is completely gone. They have zero reputation. Guys like Dan Bongino, listen, I used to like Dan Bongino. I've said this before,
Me too.
but
Me too.
he lost all credibility with me. People like Pam Bondi, all of it's gone. You have zero credibility. you can't talk anymore. You have, like I did an episode where I was like, "Look at me, Dan, now we're the news now." And that's kinda how I feel about it. It's like we're the ones setting the tone and trying to right this ship, because if you're not speaking truth to power, then you're part of the problem, unfortunately. And he was literally saying in one of his first episodes back that he was the keeper of information. It's like, we didn't want you to be the keeper of information, we wanted you to be the revealer of
Yeah,
information, you know?
the key. We wanted you to be the key to
Yeah.
release it all. Here's a question about Dan. Do you believe that he had good intentions going in and then all of a sudden was completely, like, switched or taken over or something along that line? What is your thoughts? Because
Man,
I
I just
actually thought he had potential for, being this good guy, this white hat, but in the end, it it's almost as if that he was possessed, okay? And he's still possessed, and it's kind of like you go in there, it's almost like an MK Ultra almost, possession where they take you over, and now he has this huge ego. Well, I don't know he had an ego before, but now it's like this, everything is right, everything is perfect, and listen to me. Like, he just believes that everyone is still gonna be following him.
it's unbelievable to watch, because, I mean, they were just flat out lying to us, saying that none of these things existed, none of these files existed, and we just all have to just trust that he was the gatekeeper of information, and you really don't listen, I think what it boils down to is that there were so many powerful people, and they just didn't know how to handle it, and they don't know what to do. Like, how do you prosecute kings and presidents and prime ministers? I mean, it would literally probably trigger some kind of a global war, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you go over to England and you arrest the Duke of Ellington or whatever the hell his name was, Prince Andrew, whatever his name is, you
Yeah,
know?
because he's not Prince Andrew anymore. They
Well, yeah,
took that
took it
title,
away,
but
yeah.
now he's a duke of whatever. Yeah.
But I think that it really does go deep with
Mhm.
these people, and they probably got to a point where they didn't know what to do. Like, how do you prosecute Bill Gates? How do you prosecute Bill
I know
Clinton?
now.
How do you like I mean, us, you and I are like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
Like, burn the whole thing down and start over, because that's literally what we all want. We don't want what's going on right now, and to
Yeah.
suggest for our president to say something like, "Let's move on." Dude, we don't wanna move on. This is the only thing that the DOJ should be focused on,
And for me, that was the
you
nail in
know?
the coffin for him
Yeah,
when he actually started gaslighting us, when he said like, "Oh, there's nothing there, you guys gotta forget it and move on." This is prior to it actually being released out because now it's released. Now he's still saying, "Oh, you guys need to move on." No, no, you lost any shred of respect I had for you when you said that
yeah.
there's no list. Just move on. Forget about it. I'm like,
And listen,
"Oh,
if you still love that guy and believe in him, you're a part of a cult, and I hate to say that to you. I mean, if I just remember, like, listen, back in 2017, I was already kind of awakening and all that, and I started becoming more of a libertarian. I went to work for, like, Rand Paul briefly on his campaign, meaning I just went to a couple of events, made a couple phone calls on his behalf, that kinda stuff, and I was really a supporter of Ron Paul, his dad, and I was like, "Yeah, they make the most sense." But then I started thinking about that eventually, and I went, "Wait a minute, this guy's been in Congress forever, and so was his dad." It's like, if you're being a champion for, um, term limits and things like that, it's like, then why are you still there? You should lead by example and say, "Hey, I did my term and I'm out." But you're still there, and I know we need change makers in positions like that as well, I get that, but there's
yeah."
a lot of that kinda stuff that happens, and you just gotta realize that, man, maybe we're being played by everybody. Maybe all these people are protecting billionaires and pedophiles and all this other stuff. So,
I could not agree more with you. I think that's exactly, what's happening is that there is these people that are just playing us, and they're portraying a hero when they're not. They're just deceptions. That's all that's happening is continuous deceptions. I honestly believe, and it's so evident to me that most of the politics in the United States are scripted.
yeah.
I honest to God believe this. I believe there are some real players, like real people in there, but for most part, like seeing Pam Bondi's, responses, oh, that's 100% scripted. Like, you gotta be joking me. She laughed when she looked at what she had to say, when they talked about, like, the Dow Jones and everything like that and your 401ks. She laughed and then said it all. I'm like, You're kidding me." It was kind of like, "Oh, this is a joke. I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but here I go." That's exactly what happened, and, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just like if you know, you shouldn't lean on your own understanding. You should just trust the Holy Spirit within you and lean towards God's like that's the real truth. If you have Christ in your heart, man, that's the only way to know to be able to decipher what reality is and what truth is, you know, from all this fakery, all this theater that's going on. Because man, you really do get to a point where it's like you're black pilled, and then
Yeah.
once you get beyond the black pill, it's really it kind of becomes gold pill, where you're just like, whatever. I just want to enjoy my time with my family and my loved ones, and enjoy this world a little bit while I'm here. But it's hard to enjoy that when you got all these liars and thieves and murderers that are leading everybody else astray, man. And I just hate that. I hate to see it because I really I mean, I voted for Trump both times, and I just wanted him to just come in and clean house like he said he was gonna do, and it just sucks to watch it because I'm kinda heartbroken about it. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people listening are probably like, "Boo-hoo," but it's like, well, when you put faith into somebody, you just really believe like, "Okay, this is gonna happen this time."
Yeah.
And he's still got time left, maybe he pulls it off and but I'm not one
No,
of those people since
he's serving a different country,
yeah, he's not just a different country, but it seems to be somebody different than the God that we serve. So, I
yep.
just, all these people, man, if you're not actively putting people in jail right now, then you're not doing anything. You had many years in office as a politician to make this happen,
Yeah.
and nobody's been arrested, and people's lives were ruined. People went to jail over January 6th and all these other things. I didn't mean to take this to an we were talking about Antarctica, but, I didn't mean to take this to a political
Well,
place.
I think it's prevalent to say that everything is being manipulated. Everything is being manipulated, and
Yeah.
we think, we put all our trust in someone, and it's continuously being let down. And you have to get to a point where you realize that you're being let down on purpose. It's not that the person is, oh, like there's the famous taglines. Every one of them has these famous taglines. Like for Trump, what is it? Draining the swamp. That's it. For QAnon, it's trust the plan. And
Build
there's
Back
so
Better and all these other different
yeah, it's
it's
all these
marketing campaigns is all it
it's
is.
marketing campaigns that make you sit and wait. So you don't do anything. Become a lazy bum. Sit down and watch TV. Watch your favorite Netflix.
Yeah,
Don't
and
do anything.
dude, that's the same thing with these end of the world people too. I've already heard many times 2026 is the 2025, 2020, 2012, 2000,
Mhm.
all of it, man. I've heard every single one of them, and I just hate those kind of people. I
They
can't
just
even
keep
listen
moving
to
the
'em.
bar, right?
They that's all they do. I literally heard, Chris Bledsoe say this the other day. He said, "Oh, I was told by the magic lady that it was gonna be Easter 2026 or possibly 2027." So we just gonna keep doing that? We're just gonna
Or
keep saying it,
yeah,
until it becomes true? I mean or you can just do, like just say 2058. That way you're not alive whenever you know what I mean? Stop saying it's next year, and it's next year, and it's next year.
yeah.
When really that only God knows the time and day. But
It's
again, I
not our point to we're not supposed to be divinate like, using any type of divination and try to divine what is to come. We live in the now and the present, so we should need to live in the now and the present, but I think we need to know what happened in the past. I think
yeah,
the truth needs to be revealed, such as like Antarctica. I think it's very, very important that we find out why this truth was obfuscated from us. Did the Nazis actually go down and establish a base and establish New Berlin in there? And is this where the Fourth Reich is coming from? What is going on? What is happening? And why are we not allowed in that area? Why is it a no-fly zone? It's no fly zone, no go zone. They say it's because we can't extract you. If something were to happen, we can't save you. Well, what's to say that can't happen in like the middle of the jungle? What's to say that can't happen in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or something like that, or in the Arctic Ocean? that's it.
Dude, imagine how many pyramids and things like that that are buried beneath the ice in the Antarctic in Antarctica or in the Arctic for
Yeah.
that matter, and also in the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean. Imagine what we haven't found and what they're not telling us about. I mean, there's so many different things like the Yonaguni temple or pyramid that's off the coast of Japan. They
Yeah.
keep saying that's just like a natural formation, and that's just not true. I saw one that's at the bottom of Lake Tahoe here in the United States.
Well, you know that, the seawater rose 120 meters, which is 500 feet, just under 500 feet, okay? Is that 500 or 400? I think that could be 400 feet. 390, I think it is, maybe, and around there. But 400, we'll say 400 feet, the sea level rose, and there was over, I think, 2,000,000 cubic acres lost because of the flooding. So it is known that that existed, that the waters cut, like, there was floodwaters that came, and, that takes us into the Younger Dryas, and that takes us into, like, this mass flood, which then gives credence to, the flood, like Noah's Ark, the Bible, Sumerian. There are so many, ancient texts that talk about the flooding, and,
And the rickshot structure, which is the Eye of the Sahara. I mean, all that stuff, and again, that kind of if you see how the waters flow, how they ripple, like or how the sands ripple from that region, like particularly the Eye of the Sahara, you can
Mhm.
see that there was something that happened that caused this massive shift in water that just basically ripped through Earth. And did you talk to Randall Carlson about that, about the Younger Dryas and about his
No,
valleys and everything?
I did not. I'd love to have him back on. I had him on for, like, when I think I 6 months into my show, I had him on, which was quite lucky. We talked about the Thunderstorm Generator. I would have loved to talk about Younger Dryas, but we never got into it. So
Well, what was
maybe.
made of that? What's made of the thunderstorm or not the thunderstorm generator? What when he telling us about or wasn't he saying something on Joe Rogan about, this special energy that's being created off some island somewhere?
Oh, I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't know if
The
that's
Thunderstorm Generator is using plasma to generate electricity, and it's, like, has real world applications where they're installing it onto, like, uh, fossil fuel type applications, and they're creating, like, not limitless, but they're increasing, like, by 400% the efficiency of things. But I I I digress.
well, imagine what they're studying in Antarctica. And I know that there are places like Svalbard in the Arctic, which is like this seed bank of all these different seeds and blood and trees and all these different they're literally storing up it's almost like the Ark, this is what I keep calling it. I even think I heard it called the Ark before, where they're storing up all these seeds and of plants and trees and different, types of life just in case something happens. And it's like, why would
Mm,
they put it in Antarctica or the Arctic if they didn't plan on some kind of a switch, some sort of a reversal where, the poles reverse and all of a sudden all that green land is back to what it was before and you can, easily farm the land. Maybe it's more habitable than what it is now. I remember in Canada, I remember seeing Justin Trudeau talk about this, which I mentioned this recently on the show. He said that he didn't realize how powerful his dad was. Tell me if this is true or not, because I remember hearing this. He said, I didn't know how powerful my dad was until I went further north and he drove into some sort of a compound and he just
yes, yes,
remembers
there is something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's like it was almost like another city or something
yeah.
along those lines. So imagine what they have beyond what we know about, what borders we know about. Like, what if it's warm beyond the borders of Canada up in the north? You know what I mean? Like, what are we
I hope so, but it definitely is not.
but I mean, I'm just saying we haven't been up there, so we don't know. Like, what if there's
Like,
more
you
lands?
mean past the borders
Yeah, past the
of
borders,
Can
past the alleged ice wall that people are always talking about, the flat earthers are always
well,
talking about.
that is in the south, though, but in the north,
There's an
there
ice
are
wall in the north too, right? I mean, just like
no.
we're in a fishbowl, according to flat earthers, of ice.
Well, yes, but that's not the north. The Arctic is the center of the map. So that's where it is. So The Antarctica circles us all the way around. Antarctica is the whole ice wall that
Oh,
circles
yeah,
us.
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah. So in the middle is, the Arctic, which technically they say is they say it has, like, that's where the Garden of Eden is. They say that that's where, like, the 4 rivers, come out of, is the center there in the Arctic, and that leads to inner Earth as well, allegedly. And that, I from I recall, that is a no-fly zone as well. But it's not a wall of ice. But then again, I don't know.
I don't know, man. If there was a journey to the center of the universe that you could take, would you take it to go
I
visit all these like a Jules Verne type of place?
Yeah.
You would? I'd be terrified.
Let's go, let's go. Actually, let me correct that. I would, make sure I am in really good shape, and then I would say, "Let's go."
You probably encounter the biggest mushrooms in the world or the biggest
Oh, yeah.
dinosaurs ever or something, you know?
Probably, I'd be lunch for one of them, I'd be on the menu. Because I wouldn't be outrunning most people will be outrunning me, and then that's it.
Well, I think that all of that's a possibility, man. And listen, for those who think, the earth is flat, I'm with you. If you think the earth is round, I'm also with you. If you think it's a holographic earth, I'm with you on that too. I don't really know. I'm open to all suggestions. What I actually think it is a toroidal earth with a axis of symmetry, which is like a flat plane. That's actually what I think is going on. Like we're apart. We're basically Earth is like a dodecahedron or something like that that is crystallized over time, and we're just kind of spinning, but we don't really. It's not spinning in the way like they tell us in science class. It's more or less like a vortices, an endless vortices, if you will. So I'm open to all suggestions. I don't really know because I haven't been to space. I know a lot of pilots will tell you that the Earth is flat, So that's they're way more credible than anybody else that you could probably find online. I don't think sending a weather balloon up in space will you're gonna find out anything because it
Yeah.
won't go high enough. But
Well, that's key is that, like, it's very difficult to say when people have said, "Oh, I've seen the curvature," they're lying, okay? I will 100% say they're lying. When Felix Baumgartner went up to do that, to set that world record for the longest free fall, and he broke the speed of sound, I believe, as well while he was doing it, uh, there was no curvature of the Earth. There, if you look in one of the cameras, there's curvature, but this is hilarious, is that like someone who fights so hard against flat Earth, Neil deGrasse Tyson, was like, "Well, no, actually, that was a fisheye camera." So at that height that Felix Baumgartner went, you could still not allegedly still not see the curvature of the Earth, which I think is telltale of, well, because there is none. So it's kind of crazy that if you're up that high, that it's just a flat plane at that point. Like, what is going on? And I have more questions about that jump. Actually, I know that's off topic, but when he jumps, if the Earth is spinning, I think it's like, you know, I don't know, like 100 kilometers a second or something like that. He should have landed way, way, way off, or I'm not saying 100 kilometers a second, but the movement of the spin of the Earth is great. So if he's up in the atmosphere and he's falling, the Earth should have moved much greater than So when he fell, he should have been at a much further distance of where he landed.
I
But I
think
don't
one
know.
of the most compelling arguments for flat Earth is the path that planes take. Like when you leave from New Zealand, the path you take to California is not across the ocean. You have to go through basically the tip of South America and up South America to go to California. So like the paths that the planes take is probably the biggest argument for flat Earth that I mean that just
Yeah,
makes a lot
because
of
they
sense.
don't go direct. You're like they do
Yeah,
this big loop of sorts, and it doesn't work on round Earth, but if you plot it out on flat Earth, it makes so much sense as to, like, the direction that they're going.
I gotta admit, man, all this stuff is uncharted territory for me. So like having people on who know more about it than me
Oh,
is
I don't. I
yeah.
don't. I'm just this is what I know, and, like, it's not that I don't I know that I don't know. That's what I will say.
I know one thing, I wish I would've taken that trip now just to see for myself what it was like from the sky, because you get, like, a bird's eye view almost because as a photographer, you get to kinda there's this, like, thing you can lay down in these planes, in these, like, tankers, for example, and you can basically look straight down. It's like a clear window you can lay on top of where you can look straight down. So that would've been really good. I did do that whenever I was stationed in Turkey. I used to be stationed in Turkey, and we went to Greece, and I did that over Greece, which was really cool. So, I wish I would've taken that opportunity now that I think about it. I know people who, were government contractors that went to work over there. One of the guys who took my photos for my wedding, he was a government contractor that got to go with NOAA over to I believe they were part of the hurricane hunters, which to
Okay.
go out and photograph hurricane inside the eye of hurricanes, track that kinda stuff. So, but
That's a cool job.
yeah, not flying all the time though, because you get caught in let's say you flew over the Bermuda Triangle or the South Atlantic Anomaly, then all of a sudden you're in the
Fair
ocean,
enough.
dude. Dude, I'm
Then you're in
terrified
a
of the
whole
ocean.
well, that South Atlantic anomaly, I'm thinking it's something else rather than Bermuda Triangle. I think it's something else. If the Van Allen radiation belt, I don't know. I have a theory about the Van Allen radiation belt, but that's for another episode. I believe it's kind of a possibly a doorway, an energetic doorway into that can bring us from one dimension to another dimension. But that's
I think that's a possibility, man. I think all these places on Earth where these magnetic anomalies occur have
Mhm.
this ability to take us into different places. That I mean, I've talked about
well,
it before.
the moon has magnetite on it, right?
Well, there's magnetite everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
on the moon, so if you're talking about
yeah.
that's one heck of a magnet. Um, yeah,
I got
I
this book. I got this book right here, and I love this book. It's called Ley Lines of the UK and the US,
mhm.
and it's by David Cowan and Ann Silk. And it starts off by talking about that magnetic anomaly where this guy is driving through this area and he sees these visions before they happen. He keeps every time he drives through this one hillside area, he sees these visions of like a deer jumping across the road. And then a few miles later, a couple kilometers later, whatever you want to say, he the deer actually jumps across the road. And then one time he had this vision of
What
these
okay, sorry, I got a question. Was he able to was it almost that he was going to hit the deer and then he was able to avoid it because he had this vision,
It was
or
like he
just that he
saw
saw it?
it it was like he saw the future somehow. It was like a vision of the future or a
Okay.
different timeline or maybe whatever you wanna call it. Or, like, for example, one time he said he was driving through the same area and he was expecting something weird to happen, and it did happen. He saw this vision from the farmer's perspective feeding a bunch of pigs, and then he just basically drove all over the place trying to find where these pigs were, and he found the exact farm where these pigs were, and he was basically viewing the pigs through this farmer's eye, and he didn't know how he did that, and so it was
Really?
really interesting. So these magnetic areas, these highly anomalous magnetic field areas, which is basically where these magnetic anomalies happen that causes these variations in the local magnetic field of Earth, and it causes what I think is a vortex or a portal of energy, and I think that it really does have this effect on us where it separates our atoms, and then when those atoms come back together, we're in, like, a different timeline. I think you and I kinda talked about this on Traversing Timelines, the episode we did not long ago,
Yeah.
but I think it's interesting. Those magnetic fields are really strange. There was an episode, I believe it was episode 33 of all episodes on the Twilight Zone, where dude, the Twilight Zone was ahead of its time. You
Oh,
really have to
yeah.
go you have to go watch the Twilight Zone again if you guys haven't watched it in a long time, because they were talking about all of these weird things, and I mentioned I can't remember the guy's name, but he was an author and an illustrator for the Weird Tales Pulp Fiction magazines, and this guy was talking about all these different things. So the Pulp Fiction magazines, like Weird Tales um, and Twilight Zone, and even the X Files were way ahead of their time
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about a lot of that stuff. Or maybe they were
X-Files
just not way ahead of their time, but maybe just, you know, they had already known about this stuff so long ago that we just kind of forgotten all this information because it's
It
been.
could be, and they're just rehashing it is what you're thinking.
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
the reason why I bring up the Van Allen radiation belt and the magnetics, and we're talking about like this magnetic anomaly. I'm sure I've told you this, that I had a dream, and I know this is kind of everyone's like, "What, a dream?" I had a dream where I was stuck in another dimension, another world, an alternate reality, and I knew I was, and I approached a scientist and I said, "This is the issue that I'm having. I'm in the wrong timeline. I'm in the wrong, not timeline. I'm in the wrong alternate reality." And he drew a diagram of how to access back into my reality. And when I looked at it, and because I was able to draw it out when I was awake, it looked like the Earth with the Van Allen radiation belt going through it. But then you had to put a large mass object within the Van Allen radiation belt, and by looking at it, in my opinion, it was the moon. The moon was this portal interjecting, like disrupting the flow of the Van Allen radiation belt, and that was the way that I could get back into this reality. So when I'm saying that this is a portal or something like that, that's my belief as to what it is.
Very interesting, man. This is the Weird Tales Pulp Fiction from 1926, by the
Okay.
way, and
Wow.
the guy's name is Donald Keyhoe. I just had to look it up for you real quick because I keep
Okay.
talking about it, and I wanted to at least mention it, but
Of course. Of course.
but yeah, there's a lot of books that this guy wrote out there, and I've and these weird tales, they're very collectible. So of course they're like $500, $1,000 each, all that stuff. So you can't just go
Wow.
buy a copy of it. That particular episode, I mean, copy that I just showed you, I think it was like $1,000 online somewhere. So, but there is some books that he wrote that's available on like eBay that I'm
Yep.
gonna excuse me, that I'm gonna try to buy. But
Really.
yeah,
I'm
well,
excited
right.
for that. That'll be cool to see those.
I'm excited too, man. I love this kind of stuff, dude. I love discovering information and finding
Mhm.
things that people were talking about a long time ago. And who knows, maybe I'll buy one of these weird tales and read them on the show one day or something like that. So,
I think that's amazing. Why not?
well, Rye, listen, man, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, brother. If you want to go ahead and plug away all your shows and links to your shows and everything you got going on, man, this is your time to do so. It's your
This is my time to
platform.
shine. All
Yeah.
right, everybody. So my name, of course, is Rye Voss. You can find me on Facebook. And then my show is Codex of Curiosities. I'm on everywhere where you can find me, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all those places. And go check it out. And if you guys like it, listen to a couple episodes. It would be awesome if you leave me a 5-star review, just like you leave Brad a 5-star review as well. Yeah, so that's about it. So that's where you can find me. And I do shows very similar to Brad's, of course, a little bit different. We have our own styles, but yeah, Brad and I get along really well, and he has a fantastic show. So thank you again, Brad, for having me on.
Well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to sell my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to sell my soul. Can you point me in the right direction? God send me your blessing. I'm so tired of stressing. This music's turned to obsession. I got a long way to go to ease my pain. My clothes soaking wet, mixed with sweat and the rain. Going half insane. Wishing I could change all my mistakes, but y'all be half gone if all y'all had seen the things that I saw. Hallucinating from the alcohol, hoping I can stop my own fall. Gotta stand tall, overcome the sin. Walking down the dirt road, singing church hymns. Oh dear Lord, oh dear Lord. Well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to sell my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. blanking about the memories. Now I don't know who's a friend to me. These people act like they can to me. Well, that's still a mystery. A mystery. Devil wants me to lose my religion, but I won't stop, not without a fight. I won't give it, won't give it. So I'm gonna sit down right here and pray and ask the Lord above to help me change my way. Today the world's filled with greed, envy, and hate. You're moving too fast, apply pressure to the brake. You can love me or hate, I'll bend but don't break. I'm at the crossroads trying to find my